So today I want to talk about offset cantilever patio umbrellas. They come in various sizes and shapes and configurations. I've had this for 3 years now. I've been really happy with it. There's a few things that I learned along the way, or just things to keep in mind as you're shopping. You'll see a lot of YouTube channels and they'll talk about the best umbrella and all that. But it's really the best umbrella is whatever works best for you, not what they say it is. So this was affordable. I want to say 300, something like that, without the base, water-filled bases or whatever. So that got that off Amazon, but you can get them at Menards and Home Depot and Lowe's, places like that. Super versatile. I like the fact that you can fold them up and they stand out of the way when you're not using them. During the day it works great here because I have a lot of sun throughout the day. And then around 2-3 o'clock, the sun moves over to the trees. I can take this down and then have my open air environment and still have shade from the trees. So this versus a gazebo. We had a gazebo years ago, one of those, it was a steel frame and aluminum frame, and then you put a tarp over, or put the top on it and everything. And those are nice, but it's a room that doesn't go away. So even if it's the middle of the night or it's night and you want to do some stargazing or something, you've got this gazebo above you and you can't do anything about it. Now the plus side of a gazebo, it is permanent. They can be waterproof or water resistant. These might be slightly water resistant, but in general they don't really shed the rain very good. At least my experience has been that way. I guess if you were to spray it with a waterproofing, would probably make a difference. And plus, if you have real bad weather, we've had a couple bad storms with the gazebo. When I first put it up, I didn't secure it to the deck, and it basically just blew it off the deck, and it was over in the side yard here. I had to pick it back up and move it back over. And then we attached it to the deck, and that caused some issues. We had a bad rainstorm, and it puddled in the canopy, and then I believe it collapsed one of the mounts on the gazebo. So the gazebo is kind of a one, you put it there, and it doesn't go away until it gets torn down or blown away or something, or you take it down. But like I said, this is good because you can just, when you're done with it, you just roll it up, stick it back, it just goes where it's stored, and then you don't have to worry about it. So if you have a bad storm coming up or something, you can just take it down. Another nice thing about these is you have the pole off to one side, which is a nice feature. So you don't have the pole in the middle. So sometimes if you have the pole in the middle, especially if you take your umbrella down and you've got this big umbrella and you can't see people on the other side of the table, this has pretty much free movement all the way around and free open view all the way around as well. One of the cool things I like about this is think about your position against the sun relative to how your patio or whatever is set up. So in my case, I like to come out and have breakfast. I sit at the table here, have my breakfast here sometimes. I'm not a huge sun fan, especially in the morning. We're sitting out in the sun. So I'd rather be sitting in the shade, a nice cool shade environment for my breakfast. And what I can do, I don't know if you can see the sun's actually breaking over the house right over here. Now the sun's coming out. So it's nice and shady here. But what sometimes happens is the sun will come through here on this side of the umbrella. And you can't see it now. But what happens, like I said, the sun will actually come through underneath the umbrella here. And so it's easy to do. I don't know if you can see it or not, but the sun is just right about there. Let's get some sun in there. There you go. So if you can see the sun there, depending on where it's at relative to the roof and the time of year too, what you can do is drop this down. And I don't know if you can see the shadow on this, but basically you can kind of control how much shade you're going to be getting if the sun is kind of peeking through underneath your umbrella here. So not only can you have your umbrella going as a straight out from the stand like this, a lot of them also have a rotate function, which I don't use too much in my case. And that's why. There we go. So depending on where the sun's coming in, you can rotate these quite a bit. And I just, because of the way my patio is set up, I really don't have any reason to rotate it. So right now you'll notice it's very stable. It's not flopping around or anything. It's a very mild day today, so I'm hoping a wind comes up so we can see how much these move, because these can move a lot. So just keep that in mind. It might be a little unnerving if you're sitting in here and the wind picks up, and they do move a lot. So it's not unusual to have these come way up and down. And when you're sitting in here, it can be, like I said, be a little unnerving to see this thing going on over. especially if you have guests in here, that might bother them a little bit too. So if it gets kind of windy, I know these get rated like to 20 miles an hour or something, 20 miles an hour wind, and they show it in a wind tunnel, and the wind tunnel's blowing 20 miles an hour, and the umbrella will sit there shaking and everything, but it won't come down. But that's not a real life situation, because in real life, your wind comes through and starts buffeting. And that's where it gets kind of scary, because it'll start bouncing like that. Okay, usually it's just a little bit, maybe like that, kind of a mild. But once it gets kind of blustery, you may see it moving quite a bit. At that point, you have to decide, do you take it down, or do you just kind of want to ride it out and just see what it's going to do? So this has gotten pretty far when I've been out here eating lunch or breakfast or whatever. So you're just going to have to decide. It's never come down, and I've been impressed at how well it's stood up. So just a little bit of wind right now. So this is a very light breeze. I was hoping there'd be just a little bit more breeze so you could see that. But keep that in mind when you buy these, that this one's at 8 by 10. So it's a pretty good size umbrella. It definitely works out as a parachute. So the smaller ones may not be so bad. So when you're raising these up, this happens with regular old school patio umbrellas on your table as well. But when you're starting to open this thing up, you'll notice how it starts coming out, leaning forward. But what'll happen is, if you have anything in the way, you can start grabbing at chairs and whatever you happen to have up on the sitting around. So if there's people there, okay, now in this case it was just happened to be perfectly situated, but this had been out. Let me take it back down and show you. Oop, there it goes. So coming down, it did grab the chair. So when you're doing this, you just have to be aware that you may have things in the way, and you have to move them out of the way when you put up your umbrella or take it down. And if you notice, in my case, I did have a cup here with a tall straw, and just the way it unfolds, it didn't hit this, so that was not a problem at all for that particular item. And I want to say I usually have this over further. There. Yes, I think it just got moved through the winter months. Okay, let's see if that still does that. All right. Let's say, so taking it down is going to be about the same as putting it up. You might have to move some chairs or people, which I've had to do in the past. Get those out of the way. And we'll see if this gets knocked over or not when I bring that down. So it kind of depends in the middle, because of this, it's 8 foot that way and 10 feet this way. Obviously that's shorter, so it doesn't necessarily affect the tip of the straw here. Let's find out. And when I bring it down, I kind of let the umbrella pick its own where it wants to settle. It's got 3 settings on here, but when I bring it down, whoop, when I bring it down, all right, let's see what happens. You gonna make it? Ha! Look at that. Did I grab something? Okay, so barely hit the table, I think. So what I generally want to do is a string in there, cord, I guess, and I try to keep it somewhat, a little bit of tension on it as I tie this up. There. So this little strap goes around, it's Velcroed, and now it's out of the way. Now, as far as attaching these to your surface, if you have a concrete patio or something, you could probably obviously use those weights that they sell, and I'm sure those work fine. What I've chosen to do is actually bolt this down to the deck. If you choose to do that, just keep a couple things in mind. You want to bolt into the joist below the deck boards. So what I made sure is I've got several of my bolts into the joists themselves, and I've got actually an apron board out here too. I went ahead and, can't see it, but I went ahead and bolted into that just to make things look nice. I went ahead and just attached to the deck boards just so I didn't have empty holes there. The way I've got this designed, joist coming through, so I believe, yeah, right here, these two are going through a joist as well. Because of this herringbone pattern I used on my decking, I was able to grab an extra joist there. So these are connected here, 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 and here, and the same thing on the top up here as well. So I've had zero problems with that. Putting it in this cross pattern like this has worked really well. It's kind of reduced the footprint just a little bit. I have not tripped over it yet. If those big squares were in there, that might create more of a trip hazard or just something else just to be aware of when you put that on your surface. Now with this kind of setup, you're not going to be moving it around very often, I guess. So once you get it where you want it, bolt it down and there should be no issues with it falling over. So something else to consider is where you're going to be putting this thing on your deck or patio or whatever, is how close to the adjacent surfaces are you going to be, any kind of walls or poles or anything like that. Here I've got plenty of room. I got like 4 feet between the side of the house and this lower deck here. So getting to the handle here is no problem at all. It's just simple. Usually I just stand up here. And so if you were like really close here with a wall or a pole, something behind you, that might be something to consider, okay? So I hope you found this useful in your journey to find a cantilever patio umbrella. I'm looking to buy actually another one for I got an upper deck up here because we get a lot of sun on that. And I thought maybe a smaller unit would be handy to have up there just to put up during the hot part of the day. It would obviously shade the deck, but also would shade our patio door, our sliding door as well. And I'm kind of trying to figure out how I would position that and everything based on the things we talked about in this video, positioning and how you can get to your crank and all that sort of thing. So if you learned something or found this interesting, please give me a thumbs up. If you found it very, very interesting, then please subscribe. And I'd like to thank you very much for watching.